explore new ones within the current state of global affairs, and address challenges that will affect our people in the future. A good starting point are the economic ties between our two countries. Over the past 5 years, bilateral trade has been constant, while investment has mainly been characterized by South African companies investing in Kenya. Much can be done and ought to be done. I'm therefore most pleased that His Excellency has brought along a Kenyan business delegation that is currently participating in the business forum together with South African counterparts from the business community. As vocal advocates of Pan-Africanism and intra-African trade, South Africa and Kenya ought to set the example by increasing the volume and composition of our trade and investing more in each other's economies. We are committed to taking practical measures and steps to address the imbalance in bilateral trade between our two countries, ensuring that South Africa becomes a ready destination for goods and services from Kenya. I'm particularly pleased on this that in our tete-a-tete discussions, both President Kenyatta and myself are in full support of taking measures to achieve this objective. And we were able to even cite very interesting and dramatic examples in this regard, which we will discuss later. I would like to request our respective ministers to remove any unreasonable barriers or challenges that are stifling these efforts. And I'd like to cite one even now. President Kenyatta tells me that because Kenya has been able to demonstrate great ability in growing flowers, which are exported to many countries in the world. And he said to me that some of the flowers grown in Kenya, as they are harvested and packaged, they are packaged with the names of South African shops, retail shops, and prices are set out and the tags in rands, and those flowers are then carted off to the airport, put on a plane that goes to Holland. They get to Amsterdam. A Dutch handler earns handling fees and reroutes those flowers to South Africa to go to Woolworths and Checkers and all that. Now that to me is the most dramatic missed opportunity of intra-Africa trade. Because why should an African country produce certain goods that are destined for markets in another African country but are rerouted to an African country through a European country? So this is what President Kenyatta and I have discussed and have said, that we would like our ministers to remove any unreasonable barriers or challenges that are stifling efforts for us to trade between our two countries. And we want to increase trade between South Africa and Kenya on goods that South African market needs, and also vice versa. As part of our contribution to intra-Africa trade, we should give preference to our own state-owned enterprises and private businesses when bidding for significant procurement contracts in each other's countries, instead of sourcing these from outside our continent. Each of our countries has the indigenous knowledge and expertise to benefit the other. These efforts to strengthen economic ties are not possible without the facilitation of movement of people between our two countries. In this regard, we are most pleased to witness the signing today of the Memorandum of Understanding on Migration Matters and the agreement on the return of nationals refused entry and illegal entrance. The strong foundation of our bilateral relations has ensured excellent cooperation and coordination of our positions on multilateral issues. South Africa and Kenya both seek to strengthen multilateral approaches to improve global peace and security. Please be assured of our continued support during Kenya's tenure as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council for 2021 and 2022. I congratulate Kenya for its successful chairing of the Security Council in October, when it strongly voiced the concerns of our continent and emphasized the need for a rules-based multilateral approach to global challenges. As a recipient of international solidarity in the struggle for liberation, we stand together with the rest of the international community in support of the people of Palestine and Western Sahara in their struggle for self-determination and nationhood. We note the recent Security Council resolution to extend the mandate of the United Nations mission for the referendum in Western Sahara until the 31st of October 2022. South Africa agrees with Kenya that it is important for the Security Council to support the work of the UN mission and the reconvening of negotiations by the Secretary General of the United Nations Personal Envoy. Like Kenya, we remain concerned at the delay in holding the long-awaited referendum, which is necessary for the realization of the right to self-determination for the people of Western Sahara. We are also concerned at the inadequate protection of human rights of the Sahrawi people. We commend Kenya for having undertaken to promote the women, peace and security agenda during its tenure on the UN Security Council. It is a concern that while the African continent enjoys peace, democracy and stability, there are still pockets of insecurity and conflict within countries and between neighboring countries. The reality is that much more still needs to be done to silence the guns on our continent. In particular, we note with concern the recent conflict and resultant suffering in our sister countries in Ethiopia, Sudan, and Mozambique. South Africa remains committed to regional peace and security as well as stability. We call on all relevant role players to work together towards finding sustainable solutions to these conflicts. To this end, we will work closely with Kenya on all platforms to promote peace and security on our beloved African continent. We fully support and align ourselves with the SADC position to support and assist Mozambique as directed by the 40th SADC Summit. We strongly condemn any attempt at an unconstitutional change of government in the Sudan and call on all parties to engage in constructive, good faith and peaceful dialogue to restore the Sudan's constitutional order. Mr. President, we are most alarmed by the unfolding situation in Ethiopia and the consequences it may have for the stability of Ethiopia and the region in the eastern part of our continent. There is an urgent need for all parties to the conflict to commit to an immediate, indefinite, negotiated ceasefire and an inclusive political dialogue to begin the difficult work of forging a lasting resolution to the country's ethnic and political divisions. The need for lasting peace and security on our continent becomes more urgent with the operationalization of the historic African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement on the 1st of January of this year. I wish to congratulate Kenya for being among the countries that have ratified the AfCFTA, which aims to accelerate intra-Africa trade and industrialization, and which offers great opportunity for Africa's economic integration and development. We meet at a time of great distress and devastation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Although there's been great progress in the development and distribution of vaccines, as well as acts of solidarity and cooperation across the world, the global response to the pandemic has been uneven. It is a grave concern that the global community has not sustained the principles of solidarity and cooperation in securing equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines. While we welcome some of the recent developments in making vaccines more accessible, the strategic goal for both of our countries and others on the continent should be to acquire and manufacture vaccines on our own African continent. South Africa and Kenya have proven capacity and expertise in this regard. We are two of some of the countries on our African continent who should and will be able to manufacture our own vaccines, which would make available for the rest of the continent as well. I'm pleased to see that Your Excellency President Kenyatta in Gqeberha, in the southern part of our country, which will provide you with first-hand experience of our capacity to produce vaccines and highlight areas of possible cooperation with your government. Our Minister of Health, Dr. Patla, and other colleagues will accompany you on this trip so that we can showcase to you what both our two countries should be able to accede to in the manufacturing of vaccines. Your Excellency, in conclusion, I thank you once again for your presence here today. As is customary amongst close friends, I trust that we will have frank and fruitful discussions on the current state of our bilateral relations. And as I said, I'm particularly pleased that our relations are warm, they are cordial, they are straightforward, and this visit that you've paid to our country at state level will be able to consolidate that, and we are truly overjoyed with your visit to South Africa. I thank you, President. I hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And let me begin by thanking you, Your Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa. Indeed, your ministers here present, and all state officials, but most importantly, the people of South Africa. We meet here today to join Your Excellency to accelerate efforts to strengthen our bilateral relations and to reaffirm our unwavering unity of purpose as Africans. I take this opportunity to thank you once again, Mr. President, for your invitation to visit your beautiful country, and indeed for the warm and very cordial reception that has been accorded to me and my delegation since we arrived here in Pretoria. Kenya and South Africa enjoy warm and cordial relations, which continue to thrive, making it possible for our two countries to realize great successes at bilateral and also at multilateral level. And Mr. President, you have enunciated some of those areas of cooperation. And I want to take this opportunity to express our appreciation for the support that the Republic of South Africa has continued to extend to Kenya. And in particular, we remain grateful for endorsing Kenya and lobbying other SADC countries to support Kenya's election as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council for the period 2021 to 22. The value of like-minded African democracies stewarding our continent to its desired developmental trajectory through consolidation of peace and security can never be overemphasized. Your Excellency, Kenya considers South Africa as one of her most dependable and strategic allies on our continent. And indeed, when President Zuma paid a state visit to Kenya in 2016, we signed several agreements and memoranda of understanding that have greatly contributed to the enhancement of our bilateral relations. Indeed, as mentioned in our previous meetings, it is a shared desire to elevate the cooperation framework between our two countries from a joint commission for cooperation at a ministerial level to a binational commission at heads of state level. Your Excellency, on continental and multilateral matters, allow me at the very onset to commend you for the excellent manner in which you steered the African Union during your tenure as chair in 2020. This chairmanship coincided with the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, which marked an unprecedented period globally. I was delighted to be part of the bureau which you led and which established the African Joint Continental Strategy for COVID-19. This strategy continues to date to guide the response to the pandemic. And as a member of the Bureau of the African Union at the time, I recall your tireless efforts in convening numerous Bureau meetings that, among other things, culminated in the appointment of 6 special envoys of the African Union. The envoy's principal mandate was to engage the G20 and other multilateral organizations, such as the World Bank, the IMF, to mobilize support for middle and low-income countries to mitigate the adverse economic impact of the pandemic through debt relief, the deferral of debt payments, the provision of new funding, and these efforts have been largely successful. Your Excellency, while still on matters COVID and in pursuing our agenda of boosting manufacturing capacity for COVID-19 vaccines on our continent, you also have moved through and have established the Aspen Pharmacare and I do believe that this is a step in the right direction. It is unfortunate that at a time when the world should be collaborating in the fight against the pandemic, rich countries regrettably continue pursuing COVID-19 vaccine nationalism and hoarding. And therefore, the imperative for African countries to build capacities to meet our vaccine requirements is therefore not only urgent, but existential. We in Kenya aim to start local production of COVID-19 vaccines during the first quarter of 2022, with the aim of developing a fully fledged vaccine manufacturing capacity by 2024. And in this regard, therefore, I am looking forward to visiting the Aspen Pharmacare sterile factory in Port Elizabeth tomorrow. Our cooperation on health, Your Excellency. South Africa's medical and scientific prowess is globally recognized. The provision of universal health care is a top priority for my administration, and we therefore look forward to engaging with South Africa on matters health, to draw on best practices and to develop mutually beneficial and synergetic linkages. I am aware, and for which I congratulate your government and the people of South Africa, for the great strides your country has made in the medical domain, with outstanding breakthroughs such as the invention of the digital laser with numerous applications, design of the first induced pluripotent stem cells in Africa, amongst many other things, including pioneering surgical procedures using 3D printed middle ear bones that was developed by one of your local professors, Mashudu Tishifaru, at the University of Pretoria. So in this regard, I do welcome the initiative and the efforts of our technical teams are making to conclude a cooperation instrument that provides a legal framework for collaboration in strategic areas in the health sector. Your Excellency, trade and investment remains one of the strongest pillars of our relations, and South Africa is one of our leading trading partners in sub-Saharan Africa. You have mentioned, and correctly so, that we need to work together to improve the trade imbalance between our two countries. And just to cite as an example, in 2020, Kenya's exports to South Africa were approximately $33 million, while Kenya's imports from South Africa were around $430 million. So we need to see this not only balance out, but also increase in volume. With respect to investment, South Africa is a major source of foreign direct investment in Kenya. And indeed, during the period 2006 to 2019, South African investment in Kenya has risen sharply from some $2.2 billion to some $3.1 billion currently. On our part, investment in South Africa has been rather minimal, and we would like to also see this increase. So, Your Excellency, this is a position that Kenya is working with South Africa is keen to change. Our increasing manufacturing capacity and innovation can substantially drive the increase of Kenyan exports into your country, and we are confident that we have a wide range of products that will be beneficial to South Africa. Indeed, as you have just mentioned, we need to address ourselves to the big question, and that is, what is hindering trade and investment between our two countries, and what is it that we need to do to increase both trade and investment between our two countries? And here, Your Excellency, I would request that we not only task our trade ministers to meet within the next 3 months to resolve all these non-tariff barriers and other constraints that affect trade between our two countries. Further, noting that trade between our two countries is currently hugely in favor of South Africa, we should agree to task technical teams to propose measures that our two countries could adopt to address the trade imbalance. I am sure Your Excellency will agree with me that there are a number of areas where Kenya has a comparative advantage, and these are areas that we would like to see an increase in volumes of trade and also investment between our two countries. Given the strategic importance of South Africa and Kenya in the continent, addressing the bottlenecks on the trade and investment regime between our two countries is an important building block towards harnessing the benefits of the Africa Free Trade Area. We are already working together to lobby countries in our respective trading blocs to ratify the tripartite free trade area, and indeed I urge our teams to hasten this process. Your Excellency, I am encouraged by the ongoing interactions between our business communities and the interest expressed by South African companies, particularly in housing, financial services, and also the energy sectors in Kenya. I want to encourage South African businesses to consider investing more in the full portfolio of opportunities to unlock the latent potential of our cooperation. Your Excellency, our common prosperity goals at bilateral and multilateral levels, as envisioned in our Africa Agenda 2063 and the Africa Free Trade Area, will largely remain unrealized if the free movement of people and merchandise is not encouraged. So with this in mind, I would indeed appreciate the progress made so far towards the realization of reciprocal visa-free travel regimes between our two countries be looked at, for this will certainly act as a catalyst to boosting trade and investment between our two brotherly countries for the mutual benefit of our people. With regard to matters of regional security, indeed, as you have already touched upon, we need to continue to solidly work together to silence the guns and to encourage a greater sense of democracy on our continent. We stand with South Africa on the issue of West Sahara and the Sahrawi people. We commend the government of Sudan for beginning the process of reinstating the civilian government, and we encourage our brothers in Ethiopia to work together, lay down their weapons, and appreciate that the best way to resolve their problems is through engaging in dialogue and ensuring that they managed to fix whatever areas of dispute, since the gun has never resolved anything. We also continue to support the work of SADC and other countries are doing in Mozambique to quell the terrorist threat, and indeed, as we have spoken already with the President, the war against terror will never be won by any one country. It will take all of us working together to ensure that we rid our continent of the terror agenda, and we also ensure that we are able to live as a continent with the peace, stability, and security that our people need in order to prosper. With that, Your Excellency, I wish to take this opportunity in conclusion to extend an invitation to you to make a reciprocal state visit to Kenya at your earliest opportunity, and as we steward together the strengthening of our political and economic cooperation for the mutual prosperity of our two peoples. I thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President. At this point, we will allow our valued media people to